by way of a very short introduction, for people in the digital world, this has been an exhilarating year. You know, there's so much happening. There is the whole Web3 promise of a new systems architecture for the whole internet. There was, if some of you follow this, the Ethereum merge that happened last week, you know, a blockchain that upgraded to be 99% more energy efficient. This might not be your tech mind thinking, but just think of the fact that it's possible that there's developers all across the world who establish a really, really complicated project and do this together, not companies or governments or anyway. And there's, of course, the whole synthetic media development this year. You know, we have now so much on the internet that whatever is on the internet, images, you know, social media, sounds, everything that's there is now a sort of a model for the world. And those AIs can now predict and show what's going to happen. Now, this is interesting, and all the creative people are on it like no other. The last month, everybody's been awake doing stable diffusion and trying everything out. But of course, all these technologies are also technologies that can be used for bad purposes, for war, for defending or attacking. And also, this is also a year that Europe is in a war. So that's why we invited Mikko to talk about the cyber challenges that we have. But also, the Assistant Secretary General for, well, you are responsible for departments and funds that look at emergent challenges, emergent threats, basically, right? David van Weel. And Sir Richard Barrons here, who is former command of the British Forces Command Center, and also still very much a whisperer, advisor of various governments and all kinds of other organizations on tech and war and what has changed. They're first going to give a few opening statements, and then I'll go into a discussion with them, and if you have questions, prepare. David van Weel.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I won't make it very formal, as you might expect from a NATO official, but I'll try to adapt to your world by being here and make it a bit more
I've got a nice suit on, for sure. So.
Yeah, sorry for that.
Don't apologize,
that's
never
the last
apologize.
remainder of the NATO official. Now, what I deal with NATO is emerging security challenges, and that's a very broad portfolio which recognizes that war, and you heard it in the last speaker's statement as well, is not just about rockets and missiles and tanks and guns. War can be caused by climate change. War can happen in cyberspace. There's a whole of society effort that is required in modern warfare, and I think that in Ukraine we see now how the Ukrainians are really putting that to the test, are using all of their talent, whether it's in IT, in high tech, to fight against the Russians, and they're doing a fantastic job. And from NATO I can say that we will do everything we can to support them in that struggle, even after the terrible news from Moscow yesterday. So the challenge I have is that EDTs, emerging and disruptive technologies, and tech in general, is playing an increasing role in the battlefield, in the war. The problem is that a lot of these inventions no longer come from the defense sector. I know that's not a problem for you, but it is a problem for us who are in the security world. So 30, 40 years ago, when I was already here on this planet, and most of you probably weren't, most of the inventions came out of the military. The internet, the computer, GPS, duct tape, Velcro, just to name a few things that are still around and have really changed our life. That has completely changed. So the government R&D budgets have gone down over the years dramatically, and at the same time, the market has picked up on these new technologies. The fact that we have global markets now made that more money could be made in actually commercializing your new invention. And that's great. I mean, it means that we have vibrant innovation ecosystems. In the Western world, we still have 9 out of the 10 best universities. We have the most Nobel laureates coming from our free and open society, so it works. For people like me, there's only one problem, and that is it often doesn't make its way into the defense sector anymore. So I often jokingly say that while Amazon can deliver everything I want to wherever I am and make me pay for it while delivering it worldwide, the military still drives around in diesel trucks based on Excel spreadsheets to do the planning. So we have an adoption problem into the military. And that's dangerous because technology really changes your capabilities. And I'll give you a few examples of how we see that happening in Ukraine. So first of all, Ukraine is able to harness all the potential they have and that they get from the outside to increase their capabilities. We all saw that the Russians tried to take down all the government communication, and in came Starlink with 10,000 satellite terminals to fill that gap. Commercial company with an
Elon
invention.
Musk, right?
Elon Musk's company. Yeah. I spoke to the people from Starlink last year, and they said, well, we created this mesh network of now 2,000 satellites, going to be 4,000. It's for communication, broadband communication, point to point. Do you think there's a security use for this? And that was exemplary of how these commercial companies are not thinking about what the security implications could be of their inventions. Now in Ukraine, all of a sudden, it became very evident that Elon Musk had created a system that kept up the military and government communications in a times of crisis. Now that's an example of a big company, but there are also small companies that are flying their UAVs now in reconnaissance functions. We see AI and NLP being used to automatically translate all the intercepted phone calls of Russian soldiers. We see crowdsourcing being used in adopting soldiers and getting them supplies. So all of a sudden in Ukraine, we see that that gap is being bridged. At NATO, we want that gap to be bridged permanently, even without a war, because the best thing we can do is to prevent a war is to make sure that we have strong capabilities that deter any potential enemies. And that's where we need all of you. And we don't need you to come to us, because we know that we're not a very friendly customer. We live in environments with high gates, where you need to be searched when you come in, and if you didn't spell your name right, you'll never come in, you'll have to make a new appointment. Then we have procurement processes that are based on requirements. So we actually tell you what we want you to develop, not taking into account any of your technological innovations into account. And then if you're lucky, after 10 years, we might give you a contract to build something for us. Well, by that time, you will have sold your parents' house, your grandparents' house, your pets, and you'll be living still in the garage where you were hoping to make some money after some time. We get that. So we're going to change that. And there's two initiatives where we want to reach out and make sure that we get the best technology for our soldiers that in the end have to defend all of us when push comes to shove. One of those initiatives is Diana, the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic. And that will be a network all across the allied countries, making use of existing accelerator sites, where we will run challenge programs that are based on military problem sets. We won't define what you need to develop. We'll just give you a problem, like how can I communicate underwater over a distance of 10 kilometers, which is something we can't do now technically, but you can understand if you're in submarines, that would be great to be able to do. And then we'll see what you come up with, what solutions. We'll select the best, we'll give you money, and then we'll help you in maturing your product. But we also want it to be a dual-use product. We don't want you to just work for us, because we know that the better business model, which keeps you more agile, is on the outside. So we'll make sure that you get your commercial angle as well. And in the end, you'll have all the 30 nations of NATO that are there as a potential customer. And we'll make sure that we have a system to rapidly contract that within 3 months. And I can tell you it's now 16.2 years on average in NATO. So that's quite a revolution. And the second fund, and then I'll stop, second initiative is a NATO Innovation Fund. So we'll have a proper venture capital fund of 1 billion euros that's going to invest in deep tech, dual-use startups and mature them. Take equity, because we know it's a market that private venture capital is hesitant to venture into. So in the so-called Valley of Death, we'll give you the first water bottle. And we'll also look for other people with water bottles to get you through that desert and make sure that you get a healthy and scalable company. So all of that is what we're trying to do to reach out to you. Now, all we want is for you to actually want to work for us. And for that, one of the reasons for me being here is to advocate that we are responsible users of technology. And I know there's been hesitancy in the tech world to work with defense. What happens with my invention? Is it going to be used to kill people? What about using AI in drones? I'm here to tell you that we want to show that we are responsible users of technology. And we've also already done that for AI by creating principles of responsible use that we want AI to adhere to. If we as armed forces don't reflect all the principles and values that are in society, then we have failed, and we are not defending what we're trying to keep upright. So yes, we'll be transparent in how we use technology. We'll be very strict in how we apply that, and we'll make it verifiable for you, so you know that we are the ones that are fighting on the right side of history, if need be. And as we see in Ukraine, unfortunately, sometimes you need to.
Thank you very much. And also, we'll discuss more about that dual use as well, because if it can be used by anybody, it can be used by anybody. Right? We'll come back to that. Sir Richard, you have worked in the Navy before you became a NATO officer. You were in artillery and a commander. You have experienced war, both of you. What has changed in war right now because of technology? I know you have some thoughts on this that is very to the point.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I might try and provide some high-level context, which, to my mind, drive Diana, as has just been set out to you. And in my 5 minutes, I'm going to try and give you 6 things to take away. And the first one is, we're in the deepest of shit. The world we all now live in is becoming far more uncertain and dangerous for our security, our prosperity, and our values. Whether we wanted it or not, we now live in an era of a clash between democracy and autocratic capitalism, combined with the instability of climate change and population growth, combined with the extraordinary transformative effect of the digital age, combined with the proliferation and the developing sense, regrettably, of the usability of nuclear weapons. So unlike me, when I was born barely 25 years ago, you and I now no longer live with a sense of successive generational betterment. There are no guarantees that your life won't decline or become, frankly, less secure. And the key point is that you and I, we now live with the return to existential peril to ourselves, our families, our futures, and our countries. After 30 years off from this in the West, and that means we're all on the pitch. The second point, and you only need to look at Ukraine really to see this, is the nature of war in human history has never and is not changing. It is this extraordinary aspect of the human condition. Brutal, feral, usually disappointing, usually unsuccessful, not really driven by reason. And it can choose you, even if you would prefer it didn't, which is what is now happening for most of us in the West. It's not limited by laws or boundaries or by reason, and that's why we have to have this conversation about the use of nuclear weapons and other forms of mass destruction. However, exactly as Mikko described, the nature of war never changes, but how it is fought changes all the time as a result of technology and thinking. And the point for all of you here today is the digital age which you are driving is going to lead to the most profound transformation of how nations confront and conflict for well over 100 years. Whether you, the innovators, intended it to be or not, or whether you would prefer to be part of it or not. And most of you will have to pick a side in your own personal, family, and national interest. The third point is, this war in Ukraine, I think, will be seen as a second-class showcase for this transformation. Second class because it's not between the US and China. But the things that you do every day are driving how this war is fought. So we're now dealing with a transparent battlefield where, whether it's surveillance from space or through the internet or through open source data, it is entirely visible. Secondly, and perhaps more profoundly, the sort of precision technology that you deliver is leading to this generational change of the primacy of precision weapons, missiles, short and long range, over the big military platforms, ships, tanks, aircraft, that have been the iconic features of military capability for about 100 years. But this transformation is blended with the other weapons that exist: artillery, soft-bodied humans, armored vehicles, digging big holes. And all of this constitutes today's character of conflict in a blend where you need to accept that it's like an orchestra where every player is learning not just to play their instrument, but how to play with the others with their lives at stake. It's unlike any other aspect of human endeavor. The fourth point, aimed directly at you, is that confrontation and conflict are not limited to people in uniforms, people like me, essentially. Big wars in our history are always won by civilians because they bring skills and mass and endurance. Look at the mobilization of the Ukrainian population underway right now. And war in our time will be this fusion of what the military do, the regular military particularly, what governments do with the public sector, and above all what the private sector does. Because the private sector, whether it's through sanctions or innovation, provides the most powerful levers in confrontation and conflict. This fusion of the military, the public sector, and the private sector is easier for autocracies like Russia and China to do because they can regulate all of it. But democracies, in the end, are better at it, more resilient, more creative, but slow and occasionally reluctant. The fifth point I would make is this digital age transformation harnesses everything that you do. So it touches on data science, secure cloud, AI in intelligence and decision-making, precision navigation and timing, synthetic environments, which I make, biosciences, social media understanding and manipulation, robotics, autonomy, nanotech, material science. Not one of those technologies is led by people in uniform. And as exactly as David has described, this military transformation in our time is about the application of what you do and are capable of into the military arena. And it's a really difficult conversation because you don't really understand, in many cases don't even like the military. So you're not leaning into that conversation necessarily. And the military understand what they're trying to do, but they don't know what you do, and they don't really like you either. So someone's got to sit in the middle. And the final point is, you have to see this as a competition. If we're going to get out of living in the deepest of shit, we have to understand that the winners in our time will harness what you do and protect the industries that you build to get an edge. And this edge is about being as transformative as Airbnb or Uber or any other enterprise that has transformed how we live and work and play. And the losers will be the gentle incrementalists who want to change a little bit at a time, to accessorize how they prefer to work or have worked for hundreds of years. And that's essentially how the militaries approach this. So your job is to produce ideas and stuff that is transformative, that creates the competitive edge that keeps you, your families, and your countries safe. And there will be no prizes for second place. So my strongest hope is that you'll get on the pitch with the rest of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, so much there. I have a lot of questions, and I will zoom in a little bit on the innovation part. You both argued that, you know, the military itself, or governments even, don't have the budgets, and we're looking at industry, or even at civilians for some particular types of innovations or actions. But if you look at the fund, so not the Diana, where you just put out a problem there and then ask people to pitch their solutions, but the fund, 1 billion fund, which money is coming from 22 countries, not US, Canada, and France, but all the other ones, they're pitching in. Is that run as a fund that is that has to make money? Because most venture capital funds, there's strong rules about how you make money.
Yeah, it does have to make money, because if you don't, then it becomes money that nobody wants to have. And the idea is that in the end, by NATO investing in certain companies or in certain technologies or in startups, that other venture capitalists, other private capital will crowd in. So we're not about taking majority stakes in companies, but we're guiding other venture capital, saying we trust, as NATO, that this company has a dual-use solution that can mature and actually has a market for it. And
so it has to be a solution that is also for a bigger market, for civilian markets and so forth. If you look at the really big companies that, because of digital, have developed in the last 20 years, what company would you have liked to invest in? What's the kind of company that you think, like, yes, this is market changing, that's something we could have used and would have wanted to be part of?
Let me give you a different example, not of a big company that's there now, but of what I saw recently when I was in Israel. So there was a startup that worked with the government agencies in their early stages, and they developed an AI, an algorithm, to identify on social media networks whether there were fake profiles or not. And they got that up to a degree of 95%. In the end, for government services, that is of course very interesting. And in this case, it was the intelligence services that were interested in that. But the business model, the business potential of this technology lies mainly outside. And now they were working for Elon Musk, of course, in his lawsuit against Twitter, in identifying what actual number of fake profiles are on the network. It's this kind of things. We're not trying to hijack new technologies and then keep them small in the defense domain. It's about identifying and helping in an early stage the dual-use potential, and then let it flourish also in the commercial world. But if we don't do the first stage, then it's hard to get the second stage, because then it depends on a conversation from Starlink with me or war in Ukraine before we actually see that dual-use potential coming in.
And this is just playing the devil's advocate here, but you invest as NATO, as the alliance, in a company. You're one of the investors, you're not the only one. You don't define the terms, and they develop a super fancy, much better face recognition software, which they then sell to China because China makes use of that and puts more Uyghurs in the camp. How do you feel as NATO about that? Is there sort of a limitation that once you've invested, this is our tech and not theirs?
Well, we don't want to disturb the market. I mean, we will help those companies because we will be sitting on the board as the fund. We will help them in protecting their IP, in connecting them to other trusted capital, to make sure that you have trusted capital in your company. But we don't want to change the market. So no, you can't know for sure that there won't be any Chinese investments. What I do know at this time is that China has their innovation funds and they're investing in our startup ecosystems. The number of times that I've been approached for investments and have heard that the Chinese government-related venture capital funds were more than willing to buy up the technology or the company are huge. I think we're a better investor because we, in the end, are based on democratic values and we don't intend to make money or monopolize your technology, but it's up to the innovators themselves. If NATO investing in you becomes a straitjacket, I'm pretty sure that we won't find any investments soon.
I want to move also to Sir Richard, but when you think of 1 billion coming into the market to invest in dual-use technologies, are there specific areas of technology that you already think like, that's for sure going to be part of our investments? What kind of tech are you thinking about?
So we've defined our own list of EDTs, emerging and disruptive technologies, and the fund will need to follow that. And that list is not static. I mean, that's why they're emerging, is because new ones come along. But at the moment, the technologies we're looking at are the use of big data, AI, quantum, hypersonics, biotechnology, human enhancement, novel materials, and propulsion. And those last two are very much linked to what we find really important, which is green tech. Namely, how do we make sure that also the armed forces will go into the energy transition from fossil fuels to renewables and not create any new dependencies on other countries than Russia whilst we do it.
So Richard, there was one particular area of technology that's also very much of interest to this audience, which is it's the metaverse, it's digital twins, it's spatial computing, it's a whole big field of technologies. You are working on a very specific project. Maybe you could explain a little bit about that one.
Yes, thank you. So I'm a portfolio mercenary now, and I spend some of my time working with a Canadian-based company called CAE, and we are essentially running a startup program to build what we call the single synthetic environment. And essentially, this is about taking the power of secure cloud and AI to manage it, data, models, applications, attaching them to cyber-resilient, quantum encrypted networks, to build a replication in near real time of your chosen operating environment at a scale and a complexity you could not do before you built these technologies. So typically a city, of course, but a country or an alliance like Nato. And when we do this, you'll be thinking digital twin. So yes, of course, you can capture the physical aspects of a country at scale and complexity, so the built environment, terrain, weather, the built environment down to individual lampposts and windows, that sort of accuracy. And the infrastructure, say electricity from point of generation to distribution to individual households. That's the physical layer. That's a digital twin, but with knobs on. We then add to it the human layer. Where are people and how are they moving? That's either take all the census data. So with London, we took 8.1 million census files, or it's drawing the mobile phone networks, and I'll show you down to an individual where everybody is and where they're moving now within the laws of the government who operates this system. That's the human layer. And then we want to know, well, how are people feeling? That's about doing what you do, which is capturing social media sentiment and polling and other data and drawing in human experts to make sense of it. So this is what's happening in the real world. This is where people are. This is how they feel about it. And then we'll impose on that the assets or resources that are useful to you. So for militaries, ships, tanks, and aircraft, ours and the opposition's. In the civil use, ambulances, hospitals, police cars, it doesn't matter, and there are many commercial uses. So that physical, human, cognitive resource integration of that replication is then distributed. Well, who do you want it to go to? So typically from the capital to the province to the town. And interestingly, if you look at this data from, if you like, from space, it's through a web user interface. And if you look at it at street level, it's through a games engine. Thank you very much. Couldn't have done this until the games industry provided the technology. Now, if I can replicate your city, your country, or your alliance in this way, you'll use it to understand things better, to take better decisions using decision support AI-driven tools, to plan, to issue instructions, to communicate publicly, to coordinate the operations or whatever they are when you conduct them, and to train and to experiment. I can, of course, model in this replication things that don't exist, so you can test and adjust them. Now, that is transformative for how governments and armed forces work. But just like you, no government or armed forces is asking for a single synthetic environment, nor has any understanding really of the potential of that to make them do their job better. So like you, I am constructing breathtaking technology that will transform the customer if I can only get the customer to understand it and then pay for it. So hurrah for Diana. And if any of you else has a scheme like that, please tell me about it, because this is going to change how the world works.
And just so you build, based on a game engine, based on all these data sets, a model of a city or of a country, and then you use that model to predict the results of policy decisions, or basically to predict what's going to happen. And those predictions are, again, based on AI that observes what has already happened in the world, right?
Yes, so these are built on open standards. So they're like an ecosystem that by design is never meant to be finished. The first thing it does is it shows you in a much better way what's happening now, and then using largely AI decision support tools, it can become useful and predictive in how this course of action might compare to that course of action.
Okay.
The challenge is it does not remove the requirement for leaders and clever people. This is in support of experts.
But because it's visual and because it's spatial, it helps them, it just makes it easier
helps,
to understand,
yes.
their imagination is
It
triggered
helps
more.
capable humans be even better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So superpowers for capable humans. Let's finish. Oh yeah, I've got an end flashing thing here. Okay, last question then. I had 10 more. Last question then. It's more about the civilian part of. I mean, you've both described what the military basically needs of the industry, but of course there's this whole group in the middle, the civilians that are, you know, wondering what their role in all this is. I know that all those civilians have digital superpowers as well. So you have things like researchers like Bellingcat who do research work, or you know, little groups that do work for, you know, send money over there to Ukraine in this case. What role do the civilians have in this future world full of tech, which is to me a scary world, 1 billion to war tech? Whoa. What's the role of civilians here?
It is scary, and we can't know for sure. What we can say is what we see happening in Ukraine now. So, for example, in the government app of Ukraine, they now have included an e-enemy function, which allows every civilian to take a picture or to make a mark when they see Russian soldiers in their street. And that provides a much more accurate picture of what's happening than the government or the armed forces could ever get. So it's a whole of society effort. And another example is that we have all the commercially available satellite imagery and the hobbyists sitting in their attic going through and counting the number of planes that have been destroyed in specific airfields. There's a whole lot. The digital world allows us to use the whole of society much more.
Oh, we're all soldiers now. I mean,
well, we're all helping to defend
ourselves.
Citizens
now. Yeah, that's it. That's the better way to put it. Sir Richard, what's your last take on this one?
I completely agree. I'm just going to reiterate that this transformation of confrontation and conflict in our time is driven by the digital age, which is driven by civil society and applied to the military. So the skills, the resilience, the creativity, the endurance, the scale comes from civil society and is applied to what were previously seen as military uses. It's about how we harness that at competitive pace and scale.